9/11 was a tragic and horrifying day. So many innocent lives lost, so many suffering from the death of their loved ones, many trying to save themselves and being so little survived. This all started when 19 men hijacked 4-fueled U.S. commercial airlines. This, as we call a terrorist attack, was led by a man named Osama bin Laden. Osama bin Laden and his group called Al-Qaeda are responsible for the 2,977 people lost in New York, Washington, D.C., and Pennsylvania. September 11 was a deadly day, the deadliest day in the history of New York City. Corresponding with this information, 2 planes flew into the Twin Towers at the World Trade Center, another plane hitting the Pentagon just outside Washington, D.C., as well as another plane hitting in a field in Pennsylvania. Just this brief description makes me feel for those who died and had to experience such a day.
It appears that there is more and more fire and smoke enveloping the very top of the building, and as fire crews are descending on this area, it does not appear that there's any kind of an effort up there yet. Now remember, oh my God.
That looks like a second plane.
I did not see a plane go in. That just exploded.
I just saw another plane coming in from the side.
You did? That was up
Yes, and that's
view.
the second explosion. You could see the plane come in just from the right-hand side of the screen. So this looks like it is some sort of a concerted effort to attack the World Trade Center.
In Lower Manhattan, where the World Trade Center is located, it has been a known fact till this day that 2,753 people were killed when the hijacked planes American Airlines Flight 11 and United Airlines Flight 175 was crashed intentionally in both the North and South Towers. Sadly, all those passengers in the flight were killed. Around 10:28 a.m. on September 11, 2001, the North Tower of the World Trade Center collapses. The time between the first attack and the collapse of the Twin Towers is 102 minutes. Later in the year, on December 13, 2001, the U.S. government releases a tape in which Osama bin Laden takes responsibility for the attacks. He admits that he was responsible for the thousands of innocent lives he took.
Casualties from the enemy who would be killed based on the position of the tower. We calculated that the floors that would be hit would be 3 or 4 floors. I was the most optimistic of them all. Due to my experience in this field, I was thinking that the fire from the gas in the plane would melt the iron structure of the building and collapse the area where the plane hit and all the floors above it only. This is all that we had a hope for. Allah be praised. The difference between the first and the second plane hitting the towers was 20 minutes. And the difference between the first plane and the plane that hit the Pentagon was 1 hour. The Americans were terrified, thinking there was a coup.
On the same beautiful morning, another American airline flight headed for California was hijacked and crashed in the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. In a tragic turn of events, the plane flew right towards the face of the Pentagon and exploded as it was smashed into pieces. 184 innocent lives were taken from Osama bin Laden and his group called Al-Qaeda. There was a fire on all 5 floors as it brought heat to the air as well as dust. An actual firefighter from that day said, "Many people have asked me over the past year what it was like to be at the Pentagon on September 11th. One of the hardest things to deal with was seeing people's offices just as they had left them that morning, keys and pictures of their families on the desks, and newspapers and coffee cups still sitting around. I realized that 125 of those people did not make it out alive. The gravity of the day really hit me as we were walking to facilities that the Red Cross and other relief agencies had set up in the parking lot. As I walked by the cars in the lot, I could not help but wonder how many of them belonged to those Pentagon workers who had lost their lives that day. They came to work just as they have every other day, unaware of what was about to happen. The fourth aircraft from United Airlines was headed to San Francisco when Al-Qaeda, or otherwise known as terrorists, tried to take over. Crew and passengers luckily were aware of what was going on and made sure that this plane was not going to reach its intended destination. They succeeded, and that is why it landed in a rural area in Pennsylvania. The hijacker, Saad Jarrah, took over the plane roughly near the time of 9:30 in the morning and told the passengers to sit down as there was a bomb on the plane. The passengers knew their lives were at stake, and so they were brave enough to fight back. Nearly 3,000 people lost their lives that day. If it hadn't been for Flight 93, the number of deaths of the day would have increased.
The plane crashed in Pennsylvania this morning, not far from the West Virginia border. This is one of the 4 planes hijacked during this morning's attack. It crashed in Somerset County, Pennsylvania, about 80 miles southeast of Pittsburgh. 13 News reporter Kane Faribaugh has more tonight from the crash scene.
We're here in Somerset County, Pennsylvania, and this is where United Airlines Flight 93 crashed earlier today, just after 9 a.m. It's not certain exactly what piece of the puzzle this airplane crash fits into the terrorism that's been happening all across the United States, most notably in New York and Washington, D.C., but details are still surfacing about this plane crash. Information is slowly seeping out and filtering from the wreck site. What we know so far is that the plane did crash. Whether it is tied in with the terrorism is still not certain. There was a 911 phone call made from the airplane shortly before it crashed. The woman was calling the 911 center to explain that the airplane had been hijacked. The airplane crashed shortly after that 911 phone call was made. Rescue crews, the FAA, the National Transportation Safety Board, and scores of investigators, media, and rescue crews from all over the United States have descended here on Somerset County, Pennsylvania, not far from the small town of Shanksville. And obviously, if you can take a look at the area around here, it's nothing more than cornfields and meadowed hills.
Al-Qaeda, founded by Osama bin Laden, is responsible for this dreadful day. Al-Qaeda stands for Broad-Based Militant Islamist Organization founded by the one and only Osama bin Laden in the late 1980s. Osama bin Laden is a terrorist extremist who planned the attacks on the World Trade Center and is intent on driving Western influence from the Muslim world. What Osama bin Laden did was he took all his 19 men from Al-Qaeda and hijacked 4 aircraft vehicles from American Airlines and United Airlines. The flight numbers stolen were 11, 175, 77, and 93. As we all know, luckily, Flight 93 was alarmed for the hijackers and stopped the plane from getting to its location. As Osama made all this happen, nearly 3,000 people died from his planned attacks. He was tracked down and planned to be killed. Gladly, May 2, 2011, bin Laden was killed by U.S. military forces after U.S. intelligence located him residing in a secure compound in Pakistan, 31 miles from Islamabad. As of today, survivors of 9/11 are suffering from the attack. Many people who was around the area when all these attacks happened ended up with all sorts of cancer because of all the dust and smoke that was inhaled. For example, the very famous Dust Lady. Marcy Borders, who was known as the Dust Lady, died of stomach cancer. She was diagnosed with stomach cancer in August 2014 after falling into depression for 10 years following the attack and abusing alcohol and drugs. Not only did people have sorts of cancers, but others were injured and it affects them today. The effects of the attacks did not only issue health problems, but economic problems as well. We now have metal detectors and checking of bags, so no one is carrying anything sharp on planes, so 9/11 can never occur again. In essence, 9/11 is a day that will never be forgotten. So many brave firemen, policemen, and doctors were killed just trying to save innocent lives that were in jeopardy. Everyone on the American Airlines flights and United Airlines flights, everyone in the buildings, were not even aware that such an event was going to happen on such a beautiful day. Too many lives gone and for no reason at all. Al-Qaeda brought terror and panic and the economy involved into this attack and deserved all the punishment they got.